And see what elongating both the inhale and the exhale does for your breath cycle. With each successive breath has a little bit more length and conscious duration. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. Just settling in. And then when you're right, let's actually bring both knees to a bent position if they're not. So kneecaps point towards the ceiling for just a moment. And then we are going to extend the right leg down the mat. So the right leg fully extends and the left ankle is going to come across the right quad. So you create a figure 4 with the legs. And we're just going to allow a moment here for this external rotation of the hip capsule to settle in. Arms can be wherever feels comfortable, cactus, T, by your sides, on your chest, whatever feels appropriate. And then we'll utilize an inhale to bend our right knee. So as the right knee bends, that left ankle comes closer to the torso. We get a little more external rotation ask of the hips. And then utilize an exhale once again to release the right leg back down into full length. And we'll extend the left leg so that it mirrors the right. Let your body settle once again. And then we'll inhale both knees into a bent position. Find the neutrality of the low back and then extend your left leg down the mat. Right ankle comes across the left quad. So we create that figure 4 side 2, a moment for the settling of this external rotation. And then with an inhale, we'll bend that left knee. Create that sensation of additional external rotation. Settle in, and then when you feel balance left to right, we're going to utilize an exhale on side 2 to extend the left leg. Right leg extends down to mirror the left. And now hopefully we feel a little bit more settled across the hip girdle. Utilize that next inhale to bend your knees. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling, back into that neutral space. And push down into the toe mounds and heels. Lift yourself up into a comfortable bridge, whatever that means for you. You know me, I don't generally enjoy bridges that go past neutral. But if that's what feels right for you, do that. All right, we just want to make sure we get a little lift and then release your tailbone back down to the mat. As the tailbone comes down to the mat, take both arms, extend them towards the ceiling, interlace your fingers. Palms are going to stay down here. So you're gazing kind of into your palms and pull the thumbs away from you. So see if I can get to that. So we have a spot where the thumbs are pointing up towards the wall behind you, not towards the ceiling. And then exhale and release the hands down over your head so the thumbs touch, or maybe don't touch, but come close to touching the floor. And then we'll inhale back up. Pull the shoulder capsules down so you feel those humeral heads plug in, and then exhale and take those thumbs down towards the floor once again. And then inhale back up. Let's just do that 2 more times with our own breath. Exhale's taking you down, inhale's coming back up. Really thinking about the integrity of the shoulder capsule throughout the duration of the movement. It's super easy to overextend that shoulder capsule as the hands reach towards the wall behind you. Really think about plugging in while you're doing that. And then when you complete that second cycle, and there's no rush to make that happen, this is in our own time frame. When you do complete that second cycle, we're just going to release the hands back to something that feels natural, cactus by your side on your chest. And then feel the feet connect at the 4 corners again. So lateral edge, medial edge, front and back, and then push yourself up into a bridge once again. And this time in our bridge, we're going to bring our hands together so that we interlace. We're not going to walk the shoulders like deeply underneath us. If you need to walk the shoulders just to get comfortable, feel free. But we're just creating that same place where the thumbs point up, now pointing towards the glutes. And the palms are towards the shoulders. And just try to hold some neutrality. You can feel how that changes the requirements of the posterior chain. And then relax, release those hands, release the tailbone back down to the mat. Settle in here and extend your left leg straight down the mat. Right knee is going to come in towards the torso. Hands can interlace over the shins or hamstrings here, whatever feels most appropriate for you. And just give yourself a nice little compression to that hip capsule. And then release your right leg. Inhale and draw in that left knee. Compress from posterior chain retraction, right? So it's subscapula pulling back, scapula pulling towards the mat or towards the spinal column, whatever feels like it gives you the most retraction there. And just compressing that anterior hip capsule so you feel that across the front of the left hip crease. I tried to fit like 6 words into half a word there. And when you feel complete, release that left leg. And then allow the feet to externally rotate. So we're just going to go feet fall out wide. So from toes up to out wide, there's some deactivation across that anterior hip capsule. And we're just going to settle into that for a moment. Have about 10 more seconds here, just deactivating the hips. And then when you're ready, toes come back up towards neutral. Inhale, pull your knees back into a bent position so kneecaps can point towards the ceiling. Feet are flat against the ground here. Let the knees start to sway a little bit side to side, just a little bit of lumbar movement. And eventually knees are going to fall to one side or the other, whatever side it feels most appropriate. And from this space, we're going to press ourselves up through seat and into tabletop. All right, so we'll get the little bit of movement out of the way this morning so we can get back into the recharge component. Neutralize the spine. Think about using that abdominal engagement to create neutrality here. Flip the tops of the feet and just sink back into child's pose. Stay neutral to the spine here. So don't try to let the spine round into flexion. Really keep your gaze neutral, keep your spine neutral, keep the core active. And then we're going to inhale ourselves back forward to tabletop. maintaining that neutral tilt of the pelvic bowl, neutral lumbar, thoracic union, and then exhale right back into child's pose. One more time, we'll inhale forward into this neutrality. And then one more time, we're going to sink back into child's pose. This time, we are going to fully melt into the shape. So you're going to allow for the thoracic flexion, allow for the torso to release, allow for your body to settle. Use that anterior hip capsule space that we've already created. And ease into more and more room and space. Last 15 seconds here. Fingertips will grip into the mat in front of us if they're not already there. We'll inhale and pull ourselves forward back to hands and knees tabletop. From hands and knees tabletop, let's curl those toes, lift our seat, and roll back into down dog. Just this little bit of activation here, this posterior chain length, drive from the handprints through the tailbone. Think about creating that sensation of expansion across the backside of the body. And let's walk ourselves forward. We'll find our way into fold. In our fold space, we'll inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Let the head release here so that the top of the head elongates down. Yeah, give those dog heads. When you're right, when you're ready, drift your awareness to your sacrum, roll yourself up, vertebrae by vertebrae. We'll come into our, well, I think it's going to be the only time we get into a stand here today. So we create this stability, this neutrality, roll those shoulders externally. So the thumbs point out. And you can see when I go out, I went a little bit further back. So we can maybe have the thumbs point back just slightly and then start to adjust so that the thumb roll, the shoulder capsule requirement, isn't tweaking the torso. So hands roll, let your eyes close. And then each time you go through an exhale, start to roll those thumbs back just a little bit more. And as we're doing that, so as the thumbs are externally rotating, the shoulders externally rotating, you'll start to feel how the anterior shoulder capsule all the way down into pec minor really starts to be required to this humeral head rotation. We're way past normal range of motion, right? Once we start forcing that external space, there's a little bit of a tendency for the front of the shoulder capsule to pop forward. So think about squeezing back into the scapula. And then just relax your hands back to neutral. And see if you can keep the shoulders integrated where they were. So hands come back to neutral, but now we're just like plugged in the shoulders. And sweep your arms up just to zombie level. So right at the shoulder height, palms down. And then splay your fingers out wide and squeeze the shoulders back. So it looked like my arms bent there, right? But it's just a shoulder back. And then we're going to take the arms into the bend. And the elbow comes directly out from the shoulder here. And then just let your arms start to work down. The key is to keep the elbow at shoulder height. So for a lot of us, we're going to have some pretty limited interior rotation here. You can see how off center I am just from the capacity to move my left and right arm. And we're just going to keep that little hang here. So we create that anterior space across the shoulders and then sweep your arms up. Holy smokes, and exhale through forward fold. Inhale into half lift. Exhale back into fold. Walk yourself back into down dog. This will be the last down dog of class. So take whatever you need from down dog and just allow that to happen here. This is also kind of a perfect quarter class check-in. So Nice little opportunity to see how your body has responded to the first quarter of class. And then when you feel right, when you feel complete, come back down to hands and knees, and then sink one more time, last time in a child's pose. The shoulders may be pretty blown out from that external internal rotation at end range that we just did. So you can reach back and grab the heels if that's the case. And so a long time ago, there was this dusty, dark, dirty tavern. And it had become quite a meeting spot and quite a melding pot for people of this land. And right up against the tavern bar, two men are talking and exchanging words with an awful lot of energy. When you're right, when you're ready, let's pull ourselves back forward to hands and knees tabletop. So hands slide forward to make that happen if they're behind us. And then we'll transition to a seat. Legs extend out in front of us. And let's go generous knee bend. So have enough that you could interlock your arms underneath your hamstrings. We're not going to do that, but let's have that. And then just grab your ankles, your toes, your arches, whatever feels comfortable for you. And then just allow the torso to fall forward. So we're not even looking to get the legs involved in this. The legs are ideally removed from the requirement of the depth here. And then just allow your torso to fall. And then once you get that space, so torso's kind of in flexion and more or less in range, let's slide our hands to our toe mound. So you may need to bend the knees a little bit more to make that happen. And then push your left toe mound into your left hand until you feel some of that posterior chain stabilizing musculature around the left shoulder start to activate. And then swap, push into your right foot. And as the right toe mound pushes away, feel that right shoulder, right side of the back start to activate. And then swap, left foot. And right foot. And relax. Bring the torso back up towards vertical. Extend the legs down the mat. More traditional seated forward fold here. Just allow yourself forward into a fold where you can feel some of that full posterior chain. So you may feel some calves, some hamstrings, some lumbar. Try to allow enough room in the hamstrings that you feel some lumbar length. So that may require bending the knees. And we're just going to settle into this forward fold for a moment. Make sure you're not repeating the shoulder pull that we just had here. So physical memory, right, may want those shoulders to be pulled forward. Think about re-engaging, re-stabilizing, and reintegrating the shoulder capsule. We're going to give ourselves about 20 more seconds here. And when you're right, we'll walk ourselves back to a vertical spine. Bend the left knee, so left kneecap can point up towards the ceiling. And then take the left leg so that the lateral edge can come down to the mat. Now, right knee is right toes are pointing roughly straight up, right knee pointing roughly straight up, right femur pointing roughly straight up. We're going to extend the right hand down so that you can grab the toe mound, the ankle, the calf on that right side. If you're grabbing the ankle or calf, you may want to roll the hand underneath so that the four fingers are on the bottom side here. If you're on the toe mound, that shouldn't be an issue. And then we're going to take our left hand and we're going to open ourselves up into a twist. Now, so this is a twist that I used to do a lot. We haven't done in quite some time, but you have the opportunity here to elongate with that toe mound pressure. So you can push into those right toes if you're on your toe mound, right? If you're on the ankle or calf, you don't need to elongate. But if we're on the toe mound and you want to elongate, you can push into that toe mound as you take that rotation and help feel underneath that lateral edge here on the left side. And then we're going to bring the left hand up and over top. And you're going to let the left hand come down right on top of your right and just fall forward. This little unilateral fold. We'll give ourselves about 30 more seconds here. So these two men are having this heated exchange. It's not angry, it's just energized. And they are debating the merits of intelligence. First man is this academic. When you're ready, we're gonna walk ourselves back up into seat. Let's extend the left leg so that it mirrors the right. And as that left leg extends, just follow that forward into a fold. This is just a little transitioning balance here. So we're not going to be here long. We just want to feel the lumbar really kind of come back into a more level playing field. When you're ready, we'll walk ourselves back up into seat, bend that right knee, and then help the right knee fall out wide. And as that does so, the left hand reaches down towards either the toe mounds, the ankles, or the calf. Remember, you may want to have that on the underneath side, inner underneath side. So medial edge with the fingers tucked underneath. And then we're going to take that right hand back and into the twist. Remember, as you take the twist, you have the opportunity, if you're on the toe mound, to press and extend, to add some length, and to elongate that lateral edge lumbar tissue. And then when you feel like you're balanced left to right, no rush to make that happen, right hand reaches over the top, comes down on the left, wherever that is, and we fall into this asymmetrical forward fold. So this one man is an academic, the other man has come from family money. And they start debating over, both the value of intelligence and the uniqueness, the specialness of human intelligence. Eventually it comes up that the man from Family Money has a labyrinth. Last 30 seconds here. And he starts kind of using this labyrinth as a representation of intelligence. The academic kind of chuckles and says, "A maze?" The man says, "No, not a maze, a labyrinth." And the two continue to converse until the first challenges the second challenges the first. When you're right, when you're ready, we walk ourselves back up towards seat. This time, actually, let's extend legs. We'll extend legs and follow that into a fold. So we mirror that out. Give yourself that opportunity to rebalance. And then when you're right, we're going to bend both knees, bring the bottoms of the feet together, clasp the hands over the toe mounds, and take yourself into a little seated forward fold with a little butterfly Baddha positioning. We'll give ourselves about 20 seconds here. And when you're right, when you're ready, we'll walk our spine back up to vertical. As the spine comes up to vertical, let's engage our blanket or towel. So if you have a towel, you're at the perfect length. If you're using a blanket, we're going from shelf fold to unfolded once. And then we're going to roll that. So we end up with a relatively symmetrical roll here. That's going to come down behind us against the tailbone. So you are seated on the ground and the tailbone will stay seated or connected to the ground, but the blanket is up against that. And then you're just going to roll back so that the blanket is in the middle of the spine. Now, with all the lateral edge work, this can feel pretty intense. So knees can be bent, bottoms of the feet can be together, legs can be extended. They're all going to change the way your body responds. So you may want to try them all and find what feels best. And then we're going to take our arms out towards cactus. So we start working more on this anterior space of the shoulder capsule. But we're not quite as high as we might normally be in a blanket roll. Ideally, the elbows are supported here against the mat or floor. If they're not, two choices, three choices. One, you can take the hands and just tilt them down so that the hands can be support. Elbows would still be lifted there, but we'd still get some feeling of support there, and then the elbows will slowly work their way down. Second choice would be to raise the arms up until the elbows can connect. So eventually there's going to be a spot where the shoulders are not strained. And the third choice would be grab some additional props and prop underneath the elbow. That could be anything. It could be a book. It could be a pillow. It could be anything there. We're going to give ourselves just 60 more seconds here. So this wealthy man with this labyrinth now has this challenge that he has proposed to this academic. Just going to put him in the labyrinth. And he's going to see how long it takes him to get through. And he says, you know, obviously, the first time through a labyrinth, you're finding your way. It's going to take you quite some time. I'm going to give you 3 chances so that you can prove your worth. And the academic agrees, you know, he thinks, okay, I'll find my way through the first time. I'll memorize the way through the second time, and the third time I'll do the speed run. So it sounds perfect. When you are ready, we are going to roll to the right side. So we're rolling off the blanket towards the right. And then as we do that, we're going to grab with the left hand the top of that blanket roll and angle it at roughly 45 degrees underneath the left shoulder. So what we want here is to remove the lower half of the blanket from the back completely, and then have an angle of about 45 degrees underneath this left shoulder. So I'll do a vertical demo. So it's basically here, and we want the arm out at cactus. So now we have some extra requirement of our external rotation of this left shoulder. There's also a displacement or a replacement of the humerus, the humeral head in the shoulder socket. You are likely feeling the pressure on the underside from the humeral head pushing out into that soft tissue. What I want you to think about here is, number one, that's just, it's extra sensational because we don't feel that pressure a lot. So nerves getting contacted that don't normally get contacted. What I want you to think about here is relaxing into the hand and then relaxing from the wrist down to the elbow. Knees, again, can be anywhere that feels comfortable. Bottom of the feet can be together, legs can be extended, knees can be bent. And then we're going to start to move the left shoulder a little bit. So inhale and extend the fingers out wide. So the palm faces up towards the ceiling. And then exhale and relax in. And then with your next inhale, take the fingertips and rotate the entire arm so the fingertips can point up towards the ceiling. So we stay in cactus elbow, 90-degree bend at the elbow, fingers up towards the ceiling. And then exhale back of the hand comes towards the floor, palm towards the ceiling once again. Inhale up. And exhale down. Inhale up. And exhale down. And one last time, we'll inhale up. And exhale down. Take that blanket out from underneath the left shoulder. Let your arms come out to cactus and the knees fall over towards the right. And then turn your gaze towards the left elbow. And then as you're looking at the left elbow or left arm, you could start to adjust in with the positioning of the hand until you feel that shoulder really lock into its full integration. And then once the shoulder is fully integrated there, just bring your head back to neutral and let the soft tissue just completely relax around this new placement of the humeral head. So the two meet at the front of this labyrinth. The academic heads in, and as he does so, the labyrinth owner, let's call him, closes this door. And as the door closes, these binds, it's not magical, but they just fall in a way where they completely cover the door. And the experience of losing the sensation of where the door is immediately alarming and disorienting for this academic. Last 30 seconds here on this first side. And so he has directions of left, right, forward. And he makes his decision and he fumbles around, and the footpath is not well kept. There are vines that are tripping him and disorienting him, and there are leaf outgrowths that block field of vision so that you just can't see more than 10 feet in front of you. And there's like almost a sense of panic in him. When you're right, when you're ready, knees return back to neutral. Let's reconnect with our prop friend, blanket roll. We're going to tuck that underneath the right shoulder at, again, 45-degree angle-ish. And then the elbow can fall out wide. No blanket under the head, no blanket under the low back. Low back is probably the important one. If you need a blanket under your head just for the ability to breathe, that seems worth it. And then we're relaxing from the hand towards the wrist and then towards the elbow, just trying to get that arm to just settle. Remember, the feet can be wherever feels comfortable, so don't feel like you're locked into the foot position. And then again, just that reminder, as we're feeling that sensation at the front of the shoulder, it's humeral head pushing up against nerves that likely haven't had a lot of sensation in a very long time. Just relaxing in and allowing that soft tissue to expand here is our only goal. This is a passive expansion. So hours go by, and this academic is not even sure he's progressed. Right? The illusion of the labyrinth itself is certainly working on him. He is feeling lost. He is feeling disoriented. And he's also feeling the pressure of time as the sun gets lower and lower in the sky. And then he presses up against this like, not an opening, but like a softness in the vine structure. And he pops out the other side. And sure enough, the labyrinth owner is right there, and he has a stopwatch. He stops it and he says, 4.5 hours. It's not bad for a first time. When you're feeling balanced left to right, when you feel like you've had enough on this side, we're going to use that right hand to just pull that blanket prop out, fall back into what is a very open shoulder capsule. Let your knees fall over towards the left. Turn your gaze over towards the right. And while you're watching the right arm here, think about positioning the hand until you feel that shoulder really find its place, right? So just little tilts, little shifts. Eventually that humeral head is just going to find its spot. We're going to integrate that by bringing our head back to neutral. And as the head comes back to neutral, the soft tissue around the shoulders just fully relaxes. We've done so much subtle work, but we've created some pretty significant impacts around the shoulder girdle. So as you settle here, the goal is to just be fully integrated and at ease. And so the academic and the owner of this labyrinth have this conversation. You know, he's like, wow, it was much more difficult than I thought. It truly tested my intelligence. I'm glad that I was able to make it through. There were times when I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it. And the labyrinth owner reminds him, you know, you have two more tries. Are you sure you want to do it? Man says, yeah, I got this now. Let's start tomorrow morning early. I'm going to get through it really quick. Last 25 seconds here. When you're right, when you're ready, we're going to bring our knees back to neutral. Bring our hands down by our sides, palms up. Press into the toe mounds and heels, lift yourself into a bridge, slide the hands underneath your tailbone, interlace your fingers. This time, do walk your shoulders underneath you. So you get that nice little shoulder retraction, and then bring your hips to neutral. And we're just gonna sway the hips a little side to side. Just delicately. This is probably not more than a half an inch in each direction. And then when the hamstrings feel like they're fatigued, you can release the hand grip, release the tailbone. Hands can come back to whatever's neutral or natural, and we're gonna let the knees start to sway side to side. So some dynamic movement through the hips here, keeping in mind that we want to maintain that stability and integration of the shoulders. And the next time the knees fall over towards the left, let's allow them to stay there. And so the next day, this academic shows up, and he is, you know, filled with a confidence that he was successful in the first time through. The first time he just had like a blind confidence, right? And that he just assumed he could do it. Now he knows he can do it, but he also has some level of trepidation because he knows the challenges involved. And he steps in, and those vines kind of swing closed over the door, and the door is lost once again. But it's not disorienting this time. It's comforting because he knows this is an experience I've had before. And he works his way through, and he's seeing things that he remembers. And he finds his way down these twists and these turns, and he makes these choices. And sure enough, he pops out on the other side, pressing through that little softness in this vine structure in about half the time it took him the day before, about 2 hours. The labyrinth owner stops the stopwatch, looks at it, and says, a very good time, a very good time. And the intellectual starts to go on about, you know, the differences in the first time and the second time. When you feel right, when you feel ready, return your knees back to neutral. Let the kneecaps point towards the ceiling. Let your body find that balance point, create that stability. And then exhale and let the knees fall over to the second side, the right side. And so the intellectual starts kind of lecturing on how the experience changed and how, he was able to remember the experiences from the previous experience and how they made the labyrinth itself not feel confusing. And he's using what he's describing as his intellect to just think his way through this experience. And he asks, what the record time is. He has one more shot at this. He wants to know the record time. And the man's like, well, I can't tell you the record time because that wouldn't be fair, wouldn't be a scientific experiment then. You'd have information that previous contestants haven't had. And the academic can't really argue with that. He says, okay, I can understand that. I can respect that. Same time tomorrow. So sure enough, same time tomorrow it is. And so the next day, he shows up. The labyrinth owner opens the door. He steps in, and this time he's at like a full sprint. He is remembering exactly the turns and the twists, exactly where the vines are that trip him, and he's just moving through this thing as fast as his human body will allow. And it's a long experience. There's some endurance component to it. He pops out through that softness in the vines on the other side, and the labyrinth owner stops the stopwatch. 30 minutes. When you're right, when you're ready, the knees are going to return back to neutral. Kneecaps point towards the ceiling. Bottoms of the feet come together, knees fall out wide. Body is supported and held here. We're not going to be here for a long period of time. And then when you feel right, when you feel ready, knees return back to neutral, kneecaps point towards the ceiling, eyes closed, awareness drifts within you. Ask yourself if there's anything you might want, need, or desire before Shavasana. If there is, offer that. And if you're ready to settle in right away, feel free to settle in. Just doing what feels best for you right here. So the owner of this labyrinth looking at his stopwatch says 30 minutes. Wow, that's quite good. That's quite good. And the academic looks at him and says, is that the fastest ever? And the owner of the labyrinth says, come with me. And he brings him over to this table where there's this labyrinth on a miniature scale. And he says, look at this miniature. It is built with every aspect of the labyrinth you've just gone through. And the man's looking and he's seeing the same vines he remembers tripping over at the same points. And he's looking down on this thing and he's like, that is absolutely incredible. And the man says, I know it's taken me years to build this miniature. The man says, but was my time the fastest? And he says, oh, not quite, not quite. And the man who owns the labyrinth drops a mouse into this miniature and it buzzes through the labyrinth in about a minute and a half. And he picks up the mouse and he says, this is Petey. He holds the record. But you did a nice job. Start to bring some movement to your fingers and your toes. Some movement into your wrists and your ankles. Movement into your elbows and your knees, shoulders and hips, neck and head, jaw. Eventually, there's enough movement through our body that we can transition from the shape we are in back into a seat. And from the seated space, spine gets tall, breath gets fluid, eyes close. And with our next inhale, we'll bring our hands together, heart center. Over the course of the next 7 days, can you remind yourself that we have misidentified the ability to remember for intelligence? And continually remind yourself that you have been granted the most complex neocortex in the known universe, so that you can consciously create the world in which you want to live and see how that changes your experience. Thank you so much for being a part of this morning's practice and for being you. Namaste. Happy Sunday, guys. Love the heck out of you. I'll be back tomorrow night if you want to move. If not, we'll do this again next Sunday. Love you. Mwah.